had that moment. I had the deepest, darkest feelings of where am I going? Why am I living like this when I can have a completely different outcome? People all around me are doing it. It was that shift in habits, that true reflection of what I wanted. Above all, finding a sustainable way of taking specific actions on the things that I wanted every day to get the outcomes I was looking for.
Hello, and welcome to the Rise Again podcast. My name is Dr. Peter Risenen. My passion is people, harnessing their potential and the positive impact that makes on our world. On this podcast, I interview guests who share their journey of tapping into their resilience, strength, fortitude, and mental toughness required to rise from the ashes and live a fulfilling life. My purpose became very clear to me after I experienced a traumatic brain injury and a near-death experience in 2010. Months after that accident, I embarked on a bicycle journey from the Pacific to the Atlantic Ocean. 4,400 miles over 55 days across the United States and Canada, from Washington State to Maine, in a quest that started me on my path doing what I love. To be surrounded by God's created nature and the people He created to give me insight on my quest to live my best life and help others create that for themselves. I believe we all grow tremendously through our adventures and misadventures. My ventures in hormone optimization, integrative medicine, counseling, my own marriage, and the fostering and adoption of my beautiful son have allowed me to create a different future, untethered from my past, allowing me to live the life I've always wanted, to pursue what matters, and more importantly, to help others do the same by working with them to create a resilient mind and body, as well as a purpose-filled spirit needed to live a life of thriving. Welcome to the journey. It's time to rise again. If any of these guests speak to you, do the next best thing and reach out to them. Each guest has a wisdom that only they can have from their own unique experience. Your journey awaits. Let's get going and start taking that next step together. Through the work I do as a medical director of a men's health and hormone optimization clinic in Arizona, as well as the medical director for a nonprofit catering to providing the best of integrative care to military veterans, foster and adoptive families, people experiencing low and fixed income, and health professional students in training, I love what I do. I hope you guys enjoy this podcast. Let's all do the work and follow the steps to rise again. Hey, I hope you guys are having an awesome start to your year 2023. You know, this is the first episode I've done in many, many weeks, and it's partially because I'm in the second round of self-editing of a book that I've been working on for some time. So it's about to get this thing off to copy editing. We've got the cover made. We've got some other things already done, and the publishing team is just stoked to have it in their court and to be into copy and all that. So I hope you guys have been having a great end of the year. You had a great end of the year and you're just stoked to get into 2023 and make waves. With everything going on, right? We've got the economy, news, this, that, the other thing. You know what? I just really want you guys to be really focused and positive on what you can do and contribute to society and culture at large. Just make a difference in your small circle of the world. Don't worry about big headline news and stuff as much as people might really worry about it. It doesn't impact you unless you let it impact you. Okay. Yes, there's going to be things that are going to impact you. You know, they're going to have the trickle down effect to the individual. But I really want you guys to focus on, you know, in this new year, 2023, what can I do to make this year great? And today's guest is just perfect for this podcast. His name is Teddy Woolsey, and Teddy was introduced to me really as the guy who wants to talk about how like motivation culture can actually be hurting us and really trying to implement lifestyle changes in a habitual format that just create it so that's just long-term success. He's an online fitness entrepreneur and business-to-business sales executive that works full-time on that project. He teaches his clients how to sustainably lose fat, build muscle, and find the balance of hard work and joy and play in their lives. Passionate about teaching clients the fundamentals of exercise science, nutrition, behavioral science to promote long-term changes to minds and bodies. Things that he's passionate about, some of it we don't go into detail on, but how motivation culture is hurting us, his mental and physical financial journey from 2018 to today. We really dive into that. In fitness, he loves to talk to people, ask them what they want. Oh, they say, I want a six pack. He goes, well, he finds that what they really want is confidence and to feel good in their bodies and to look great and to feel healthy. So figuring out what people say and what they actually really want. And he helps people dial that stuff in. So I hope you guys really enjoy today's first podcast of 2023 on the Rise Again podcast with Teddy Woolsey. I like what you're doing because it's a really refreshing way to look at health and wellness. And it's just not common, right? We've got the diet mentality here in the United States and in elsewhere, it's creeping into other places as well. But like the all or nothing, on or off, binge or starve yourself, the whole juxtaposing, it's alcoholic thinking, right? It's just like,
there's it's a great way to put it.
There's no gray area. And it's like life is mostly gray, really. But how do we navigate that, right? So
well said. Yep. Agreed.
Yeah. And so Teddy, just awesome to have you on the podcast. The Rise Again podcast, we love to get people who've literally risen from the ashes of life and they're here spreading their message for other people and they're doing great for humanity and giving back to other people in that sense. And with all you've learned. So I just welcome to the podcast. You have a great story and I'm excited to have you on the podcast today.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm really excited as well.
Kind of a little icebreaker. What is one of your favorite Christmas traditions and one of your ones that you actually dislike the most, but you still do it every year?
Oh man, I'll tell you what, I love Christmas. I absolutely love it. My birthday is the week after Christmas as well. It's just a wonderful week for me. I love the magic of it all. I feel like a little kid. So I grew up in Chicago and we had a very rigid 24 hours. And that whole tradition itself was beautiful. Like the night before, we'd go to one side of the family and we'd have presents and kids and, you see each other and that whole thing. Then we'd go to church and we'd have the 10 o'clock service, candlelight service, everything. We go home. You got to be asleep by midnight because Santa's coming. I'd still do it as an adult. Then you wake up promptly at 6:45 a.m. Go wake up my sister, go wake up my parents. We go downstairs, coffee, camera, all that kind of stuff. You got the tree, you separate the gifts, you do that as a family. And then we'd go over to my other side of the family and my uncle and aunt, they would just create this feast. You're talking biscuits and gravy, eggs, bacon, everything like that. We'd open gifts over there, grandma, all that kind of stuff. And then we'd come back home, I'd nap for 2 hours and see the other side of the family. So it was a marathon, but I love it every single year. I love tradition when it comes to holidays in particular. Reason being, I feel like it's a great way to kind of reflect on in the same place, the same thing. If you do the same things in the same place at the same time of year, you can reflect on how much you've grown in that past year when you have that reference point. I don't know. It's very magical to me. So I hope that answers your question well.
That's great. Sometimes I've told my wife, when we were asking about that, I asked about the things that you'd maybe change if you could. Some people have just a holiday that they just love and they've done it their whole lives. And for me, sometimes I feel like I just love to go get a cabin in the woods, just take my wife and my little guy and just go check out and be away from everybody for just one season. And I think it would re-spark some of that fondness for getting together as one big family because I love our family gatherings, but I feel like sometimes a little change would be a little fun.
Funny you should say that. This is the first year that we're not going to be doing that in the same way. We live in New York now. We've been here for about a year and a half. And I told my wife, she's not from the States, she's from India. So she's never really grew up on Christmas. And I said, you know what? I just want to be here, me, you, the dog, and just kind of watch, hopefully snowfall. I'm praying for it. Hopefully snowfall out our window and just watch some Christmas movies and, have some Christmas cocktails, enjoy our gifts with each other and just enjoy each other's presence where pretty much the whole world is shut off from each other. So it depends on the year, but like a little dissonance from the norm is good sometimes. That's for sure.
Favorite Christmas movie?
Oh, A Christmas Story comes to mind as gun to my head. I love The Grinch, with Jim Carrey. That was a masterpiece. I'd have to gun to my head say A Christmas Story for sure. How about you?
Probably Home Alone.
That's solid as well.
It's just a classic. We were at out at a shopping center because here in Arizona you got outdoor shopping centers, right? Because the weather's so nice. Outdoor at this shopping center, and they had this big screen set up, and they had these kids and their parents had all these blankets laid out, and it was like everyone was watching Home Alone out in the area. I was like, wow, that is so nice. That essentially the quad of that shopping center was all filled up with people watching Home Alone outside at night. It was just really cool. So yeah, probably that one just because it's so funny. I really enjoy that one too. So
yeah.
Before we get into your background, why don't you just give us up to date something that you're up to right now in your life that is using up a lot of time and energy, that kind of goes along with what we're working on or what we're going to talk about today.
my main source of income and livelihood in general, myself is I'm a B2B salesman, a business to business salesman for a national recruiting company. And I've been doing that for almost 5 years now. So that's my bread and butter. I love it. I love the company and it's great as a foundation. So that takes up most of my time during the day. Outside of those hours, I'm extremely passionate about simple, sustainable fitness, coaching people, and basically teaching people how to at least establish the fundamentals and the 101 components of dieting, exercise, how the biology works, and how to integrate that into sustainable habits as well. So I'm a layman, like an actual, just again, salesperson who kind of self-taught all of this sort of thing. And I'm trying to teach people just enough for them to know how to springboard into the next level if they want to, get into specialties if they want to. But if they want to just stay at like, hey, I know how to lose fat, build muscle, sustain that, and that's where I want to be. That's my sweet spot. I just want to be that voice of simple, understandable fitness for people as someone who is in the trenches on a day-to-day basis in a 9 to 5 and then some. I have an active social life. I have a wife, a dog, and priorities outside of my work. And I want people to see, hey, anybody can do this. This is how to do so. It's not as complicated as you think.
Yeah. As we were talking about before we started recording, I think it's just the mindset around it. I mean, people have such a negative outlook when it comes to like, oh, this is the next solution. Every year there's like new books that come out right around, it seems like around the new year. And everyone's ready, like, okay, like I'm going to try the next, whether it's the next diet or people sign up at gyms and they go for a while. And this is partially even me. Like I'll get into a gym for a while and I feel like I need to change it up after about 6 months. And I'll do some different physical activity or whatever else and kind of swap things up. But I feel like with the mentality that we have, how do you help people? How do you help them shift out of the mentality of, all or nothing, on or off, the light switch mentality, I call it? How do you help take people out of that and put them into a mindset of this is a different way of looking at things?
Yeah. My entire philosophy is built into the name of my company, which is RBLD Fitness. The letters are RBLD, and those letters stand for something. They stand for reflect, build, learn, do. Those 4 steps in that order is how I've not only taken stock of what I wanted in my own life when I was at my darkest, lowest times, but at any given time, you can apply those steps for fitness, for your career, for relationships, whatever. So I'll give you an example. With my clients, a lot of them come to me and they have kind of an ambiguous perspective of, I want to change. I want to feel better. I want to get more toned. These generic kind of wide open terms that could mean anything for any person. And that's fine. I understand. So my job is to help them. Okay, what really do you want and why? Well, I'd like to lose 20 pounds. Okay, well, why is that? What does losing 20 pounds mean to you? If you lost 20 pounds, how would your life be different? Well, I'd feel a little bit better. I'd feel more attractive. I'd feel more confident. Okay, great. That's good. So we want to feel more attractive. We're all chasing an emotion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I actually walk people through an exercise that we have in the program that actually helps us drill down the specifics of what we want, why, put numbers to it, put specific dates to it, and that sort of thing, so that even if you achieve 50% of that, you have something measurable. Once we've actually had the conversation, okay, this is what I actually want, not just kind of some generic feeling that I have. I actually want this. I've spoken this into existence. And by the way, I've invested with somebody else who I've told that I want this as well. Okay, great. Now we can build a plan in accordance to that goal. This is where the real magic happens. The building portion is the most underutilized component to any progressive plan anybody can have in their life, particularly when it comes to fitness. And I have what I call the what, when, and where of fitness. It's what program do I want to follow? You can't just go to the gym and wing it every day because that's going to get old really fast. You're going to burn out. You're going to get confused. You're going to get frustrated, and you're going to feel like you're a hamster on a wheel, right? You need a program to follow that you're progressing towards. You're following actual steps that are built to help you, right? So that's the what. So that can be at the gym, that can be at home, that can be with body weight exercises, that can be with bands, that can be with barbells, equipment, dumbbells, etc. So I have programs for everything in between. That's the what. The when is, okay, what time of day and what days of the week are you going to go? And research shows that you're at least 50% more likely to follow through on a plan or follow through on working out during the week if you actually just simply write down the days and times that you're going to do so. It's a very simple exercise that takes less than a minute. And then, of course, the where, which is gym, home, outside. You want a flexible hybrid mode as well. I have a gym that's right across the street, and it's free to me, but it's cold. I don't want to step outside. So what do? I have an entire program that I can just do right here from my living room, and I can still consistently exercise, still overload my muscles, still progressively move. So that's the what, when, and where that comes about within the actual building components of the program. Then, of course, the final pieces are the learn and the do, L and the D. I have educational modules that are literally fitness and diet 101. This is how fat loss works. This is how energy balance works, and stuff that we should have been taught in school a long time ago. But, we were too busy learning about, that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, or whatever the phrase is, which is fine. That's all well and good. But literal like personal finance and standard biology of how energy balance, muscle building, how muscles break down and rebuild, like little basic stuff like that. We are all capable of understanding if we're just given that bite-sized information. I just feel like the diet industry doesn't respect people's intelligence. When I learned how simple all of this really was, that completely changed not only how I planned, but the confidence on a day-to-day basis of what I was doing was leading to something. Kind of going back to that feeling before when you go to the gym and you're like, you're making quote unquote good decisions. It's like, okay, yeah, this is great. I'm making good decisions, but what is this leading to? When do I get to stop this? When do I get to adjust? And if I do, what happens? That insecurity of understanding what all of your actions are leading to leads to burnout, frustration, and ultimately quitting. And quitting leads to ultimately failure and that 6-month cycle of like, all right, now I got to start again. I'm just trying to help people avoid that.
Yeah, I feel like what you're helping people avoid is that what you talked about in the end there, which is that self-flagellation, right? I mean, there's nothing worse than seeing patients in the office and people who've tried things over and over again, from the industry, right? They've been given a book and instead of, us being taught how to fish in school, we're just given fish, right? And that's what what the books are teaching people how to do. It's just like, here, go do this thing and you shall have the power. It's like, well, no, like what you're saying, how does my body work? What are the major concepts that if I understood these, I could literally create my own plan with help from somebody else with some accountability, and then I could take action on that and I could have an expected outcome. You have a different philosophy there, and I really, really like that because it's very individual and you are allowing people to use their intelligence to figure this stuff out because it's really not that complicated.
Mm-hmm.
But it has been oversold. And, you can get into the weeds on stuff. Like I've been to some different integrative medicine conferences where they say a calorie is not a calorie. And I have to agree with that, right? If you're getting something out of a package, well, it's not just, so there's all these different philosophical things that different people claim that they have, but really it comes down to more simplicity in my working with people. It's like eating whole food. Like what is real food? Are you eating the calorie-free, 0-calorie packaged stuff that you have to peel tops off and eating out of plastic all day long? Or are you actually cooking your own food? And, simple things like that as well. So love that. Why don't you give us a little bit of a background as to why did all of this become so important for you? Tell us about growing up and kind of your journey to what landed you here.
Yeah, well, it was a rainy day on a Tuesday. No, I was born in a suburb of Chicago called Joliet, Illinois. It's a very kind of blue collar. It's known as a prison town, actually. If you watch the movie Blues Brothers, they record some of that there. Prison Break was they recorded the first season in one of the prisons over there, and that's kind of what it's known for. It's very blue collar, hardworking, etc. I won't say that it's a bad place to grow up because I'm really glad, but at the same time, I think there was a lot of growing pains being there. There's a lot of violence in the near areas. A lot of, I have friends that have been killed in gang violence. Prison, it's not uncommon to go through, put it this way, very, very close to the poverty cycle and below. And I was very in touch with that community. A lot of my very close friends to this day are still within that community. And so all of the things that come along with that, the stereotypes that come with that, teen pregnancies, drugs, crime, I was very in tune with that. I'm lucky. I'm really blessed that I had a family that was strong, morally, ethically, hardworking. And they taught me that, even though I had my own growing pains getting out of that in rebellion, but those were my roots. So with that said, eventually I got a couple degrees in religion, if you can believe it or not, in theology, Christian theology. The plan was to be a professor. I was always a very curious child. I wanted to teach people. That was kind of like, my spiritual gift, if there is one. I was with someone in Illinois, moved out to Connecticut and spent some years here. The religion thing didn't work out. It just wasn't what I thought it was. A lot of red tape. And eventually I got into corporate America. I thought, you know what? Here's some stability. I can jive with this. So I did that for about 3-4 years. The main changing points in my life was the person that I was with at around 2017, 2018. Things started to crumble. It was a long-term relationship, but we were growing apart very quickly. I'm not going to put her on blast or anything like that, but there was just some things going on that I found out later were not very good. We were running our finances into the ground. My career wasn't going anywhere. I was out of shape. I was depressed and lonely because the relationship had fallen apart. And that's an even more lonely feeling, but you're actually with someone in the same house and you're not even communicating. And it was just a really, really bad, dark situation. I felt like I wasn't going anywhere. I had this moment one day. I stepped out of the shower, standing in the towel, just kind of like, I called myself soft back then. I wasn't like obese. I wasn't skinny. I was just kind of just there. And I'm looking at myself. I'm like, you're not going anywhere. Where are you going? What do you even want? I'll never forget that sobering feeling of thinking, I've got to do something now. Two influences changed me right then and there. I read a book called The Miracle Morning, and it just kind of gave you some structure in a morning routine of like what to do. You meditate, you read, you write, you exercise, and then you do something else. The intention was you invest in yourself, you grow a little bit, that sort of thing. So that gave me structure in the morning. But I knew my primary focus was I have to get out of debt because I was 100K in debt from school, from car loans, from just misusing credit cards. And I said, I've got to get out of here. I just don't know how to do so. I started listening to a gentleman by the name of Dave Ramsey. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but yeah, he's a good dude. Yeah, he's a little wild, a little intense, but not everybody likes him as a person. But the guy, for whatever reason, he has a structure of getting millions of people from a hopeless, like paycheck to paycheck lifestyle into true wealth. And these are people that are everyday teachers, accountants, nurses, working on farms and construction, whatever. And I thought, okay, I'm going to listen to this guy and see what's up. He, like many other people, have a strategy. They have programs that you can follow and it works. What was different about him was he had something that was so simple and so rooted in the fundamentals of what personal finance was that even though it wasn't the most optimized way of getting out of debt and building wealth that you could have with like a personal investment professional and so on and so forth, it worked for the masses, and it worked for the masses because it was simple. He changed my entire perspective on how to deal with my problems. So that's a very long way for me to say that I have built my program, my coaching, even the app that I have, the RBLD Fitness app, I have built it around that same structure of it. It's too simple to fail. And if it's simple enough, you will continue it. And if you continue it, you will get results. I'm out there. I'm just an evangelist for people to understand that speed is not going to save you. Losing weight quickly has proven to be, if you do it the wrong way, the weight regain statistics are staggering. It's something like 80 to 95% of people regain the weight after 3 years and then some. Why is that? Because we're valuing speed and unsustainable methods as opposed to sustainable, reasonable, and even enjoyable methods to get to where we want to go.
Wow, so much there and so much food for thought for people too. I mean, what started it off was really big. There was some significant discomfort there, right? In that relationship too. And just kind of coming to that spot. I think many of us have been at that spot where we, if you're listening, you've probably been there where it's like, you're thinking to yourself, something needs to change. Like something needs to change. Like, and if I keep going down this path, like I'm kind of giving up part of my life because I know at this point, like you kind of come to those forks in the road and you can either go to the left or go to the right. You can keep going down the path you were on, or you can deviate and look at where it's led. I think that everything in life, happens for a reason. Look at where, you've come from that to where you're at now. Like you have a successful...
I should highlight that. Yeah. My apologies. I forgot to actually like put out the before and the after, right? I didn't even mention, I mentioned the business, but at the time, just to give you kind of like bullet points of where I was then, where I'm at now, this is like 2017, 2018. I was $100,000 in debt. I was earning maybe 45, 40 a year. In a corporate job. I was depressed, out of shape, and in a failing relationship at the time. I was living in the middle of like a 1-bedroom apartment in Connecticut out in the woods somewhere. Since then, now I've quadrupled my income and then it continues to grow from that standpoint. Best shape I've ever been in my life. I met my now beautiful wife and got married to her. She's doing well as well. We live in New York City on the 28th floor. We get to see Manhattan as our skyline every morning and every night. And we have money to spare. Our debt is virtually gone. Not only am I successful in my sales career, but I'm also running a successful online business teaching people and how to save their lives from a physical, mental, and emotional perspective. All it took to change that was probably 6 to 12 months of like true dedicated habit shifting and really seeing that through. Because I don't believe in a month you can actually like keep that for the rest of your life. You have to prove to yourself that you can see this through seasons and ups and downs and changes. And that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what it led to. So I just want to like highlight that like I am truly living a completely different and beautiful lifestyle now because I had that moment. I had the deepest, darkest feelings of where am I going? Why am I living like this when I can have a completely different outcome? People all around me are doing it. It was that shift in habits, that true reflection of what I wanted. Above all, finding a sustainable way of taking specific actions on the things that I wanted every day to get the outcomes I was looking for. And here we are.
Yeah, it's something else to see someone grow from, we can all choose to grow when we get down to those valleys, right? Those valleys in life where it's black and it's dark. If people are in one of those, don't dwell in it. Like you're going to get stuck in it. You're going to think about things and you're going to be there for a bit, but start thinking about, okay, how can I change this for the better? Because something great could come out of that. You look at all these virtually yourself, a lot of other very successful people, even Dave Ramsey's story, right? I mean, he was like so in debt. He was just, and look at him now. He's teaching people now how to recover their financial destinies, right? And to live like no one else now so they can live like no one else, like better than everybody else later, right?
Yeah, live like no one else so you can give like no one else or something like that. That's one of his catchphrases. But same thing. It's like that mushrooming out of you change your own life so you can change the lives of others in the future. And by the way, so that they can teach others to do the same, that mushrooming out effect of goodness.
And I think what's so special about what you've done is that, when you've gone through these dark spots, what people need to realize is that people tend to want to like cover it up or like not talk about it. Like, oh man, I was down there. Like that's your gift. Like having been there, you can actually share that with other people. And that's a huge relatability thing.
Yeah.
When I'm talking to a patient, for example, and they're talking to me about a struggle that they're having, and I can say, hey, guess what? Let me tell you, let me relate to you on this one. I've actually been right there. And it all of a sudden builds this level of trust with somebody that you could have never built before because you've been there and you've also struggled, right? Like you weren't Teddy here using like, you didn't just end up here because of because of your good looks and mom and dad's giving you a bunch of money and saying, here, Teddy, go live in New York City, right? And go do this thing and teach people how to do it. You probably wouldn't be teaching people how to do this if this hadn't been your journey, right?
That's very well said. I always joke with people. I realize that I look like I walked out of Cape Cod or Martha's Vineyard or something like that. I totally get that. I'm like, if you only knew the real origin of where I came from and really just the company that I keep these days, it's just we all have that mentality of diversity, struggle, enjoying the fruits of our labor from like literally starting from the bottom. That's a really great point to make that. And one of the first things I mention with my clients is like, listen, I haven't always been here. I have seen and felt the most lonely and depressing and hopeless of days for extended periods of time, by the way, where I felt like I'm so sad. I don't even know. I can't even think about what I want. I just want this to stop. And what was worse was I didn't know anyone else who had been in this stage of life and dug themselves out in the same way, except for my dad, who had done so when he was in his 20s. He was alcoholic, broke, the hills of Missouri, and he found his way out of it. So he was my example of like, hey, this of resilience. But I had never actually seen him go through it. I only saw the finished product, right? So I heard these stories. I knew it was possible, but I've never like witnessed it. I'm not even like podcasts or anything. You always see the final product of what people are. I thought, man, this is a great idea to like change my life, but how in the world do I go about doing that? Hope isn't enough. I have to have a strategy. I have to have a plan, like hour by hour. What do I do? How do I spend my time? What are the things that are going to give me the return on investment? And it was just by investing a little bit of time in some books and some podcasts and some conversations with people who knew somebody and understand, okay, there's these common threads that all of these folks have. They had that kind of come to Jesus bottom of the barrel moment. They realized they wanted something more, reflection. They built a plan that they knew would work for them and it would get them the return that they wanted. They learned what they had to do to get there and to actually like sustain those habits, to know that their efforts were leading to something. And guess what? They executed. And so their life looked different. And that's the common thread that you have, that so many of us who've seen the darkest times and have built a life outside of that have done so. And you said it best earlier, desperation is a good thing. It's a great thing if you are ready to take that challenge on, because it's a gift gift like so few of us have. There's a story in Revelations of the Christian Bible where basically the concept is that it's better to be cold than lukewarm. It's better to live a cold life where you're sad, you're desperate. There's some, you got to prove something or change something, because if life is too comfortable, you'll never know what you want. It's already there. I'm really glad. I would never change a thing. And I'm so happy that I went through those dark times, because let me tell you, when you do, and you have even an ounce of a better life afterwards, you appreciate it so much more than before. I feel bad for people that have had their life handed to them. I really do.
I could say the same. I'm curious about, you talked about a little bit of mentorship stuff. Like, I think there's some common themes with people. I seem to, faith is one thing, right? And I mean, you have your background, right? Having been a part of the church and then studying theology. What part did faith play in your pulling through all of this?
I'm about to hit you with the whirlwind right now. So I'm no longer Christian. So my wife is Jewish as well. So I converted to Judaism when we were getting towards closer to engagement and marriage. With that said, faith and a belief in a greater purpose, I'll take a step back. Faith drove me most of my life. That built the foundation of who I am today. While I don't hold to the same doctrines that I once did, the belief and optimism and betting on myself because I believe that I am built and meant for something greater, that comes from faith. That comes from those common threads of faith, particularly from the Christian theology. And I'm so grateful for that. Even to this day, I still think back to those lessons I've learned from Sunday school, theology class, the conversations I've had in Christian philosophy, and so on and so forth. And there's so many common threads between that and Judaism. And these days, I'm more of a Stoic philosopher. If anything, I'm a huge fan of like Ryan Holiday and his books. But the threads are, you have to do the best with what you have when you have it. And if you are going to choose to opt out of that lifestyle, then you really have no right to complain when the inevitable chaos of life takes over for you. So faith was this kind of source for me in life of, I know that the cards are stacked against you right now, but you are meant for a greater purpose than this. And it's up to you to take the mantle and walk with it. I'm so incredibly grateful for the origins and really those themes that still play out in my life to this day.
Nice. The other one on top of faith I've thought about is male mentorship, right? I mean, men need men. This is something that we kind of brought up early on. And it's been a theme in the book that I've been working on too. I have a chapter on mentorship. And I think it's just such a critical piece in a society where we tend to be a little bit more, when we have everything at our disposal and we're so easily connected via phones or video or whatever else. It's like we need this tribe of people around us. And especially as men, I mean, we grew up in that where we had someone showing us how to farm, someone showing us how to hunt, someone showing us how to do the job that we were meant to do, maybe to raise money for our families, and someone, our father to show us how to be a dad, or different things like that. So what role did your male mentorship play in that?
My dad was definitely the origin of that. He's just an exemplary human all around, the things he's been through. And it's hard to even mention, to be honest with you, like from his childhood and the abuse he suffered for many years and built himself out of that life and really out of that context that was extremely oppressive for him and debilitating in a lot of ways. He was my first example and my first mentor that still permeates to this day. What I've always kind of like gravitated towards in my adulthood, even as a true introvert, is learning from the lessons of those whose lives I value, authors, speakers, friends that I have built a lot of trust and integrity with, because I always want to be able to be my true self with whoever I'm speaking with. I'm not going to grow as a person if I have to lie about what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, what I'm wanting, and how I'm comparing my life to theirs. So I have built this tribe of friends and family around me that have always kept it real, so to speak, with me. If they think something's going on fishy in my relationship or my life, they'll call it out. If I'm lying or I'm being disingenuous or I'm just flat out wrong about something, they're not going to cater to my feelings. They're going to tell me. And I love that. I absolutely love that. I tell them, continue to challenge me for that. This is why I'm friends with you. If we don't have authentic relationships where we can actually choose to be ourselves and we can express ourselves as we really are, that's romantic relationships, friendships, family, etc. We're not setting ourselves up with one of the primary pillars of growth and solidified lifestyle in general. So to answer your question in a shorter way, I would say mentorships and equal, transparent, authentic relationships has been my absolute fundamental pillar for growth.
I love that. Authenticity is absolutely key through this whole thing, and having people who are going to not pander to whatever you put out, but instead stop you in your tracks when they know that you're not being genuine or authentic or whatever. So not sugarcoating it, kind of giving it to you the way that they see it. And man, is that one of the best things that we can do for each other. It really is.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of, he gets a lot of flack for a lot of things, and I don't agree with everything he says, but Jordan Peterson and guys like that who are top tiered thinkers of how the male psychology works, how important it is for us to have those authentic, real relationships with one another. And by the way, to show men in particular, humans in general, but men in particular, that to live a meaningful, authentic, honest lifestyle where you have purpose, you have meaning, you have something to work for, you have some people to care for, above all, responsibility for yourself and others. That's the best thing we can ask for. It's the only thing we can ask for if we want to have a fulfilling lifestyle. The problem in my eyes that we're running into these days is that it's very confusing how to be a man in 2022, 2023. We have a lot of mixed messages. Express your emotions, but not too much. It's okay to stay home and not produce, not do whatever, but I'm going to look at you differently, men and women alike, and everybody in between. It's very hard to know, hey, is what I'm doing and how I'm living every single day the right thing? How do I compare to others? How do people view me? Do I feel good about myself? And if you don't have authentic conversations with people and relationships where you can say like, hey, like, what are your thoughts? How do you feel about this? How do you feel about this issue? And have reference points to base your life on and stay within the lanes of the direction that you want to go. It's very, very confusing and lonely to be a person in this world in general, but a man in particular. And that's my feeling as of late. That's for sure.
Yeah, certainly. And that's where I find why do you think Jordan Peterson, Dan Rubin, like a lot of these people have just exploded in popularity over this period of time, right? To go back to central tenets of what are men missing out on? Why are there these men that are just kind of on their own, depressed, doing their own thing, not really picking up? And I really like where he says, add responsibility, and responsibility will give you meaning in life.
Yeah.
Where we think about like, oh, shirk responsibility because then it gives me freedom to kind of go do whatever. And it's like there's a video series that he did on marriage, even. It's a 3-part series, and it's just so awesome. It talks about growing together in marriage, where I find it very appropriate. My wife and I watched the first one together, and we're going to probably watch the second one together here soon. But I just found it really neat to talk about marriage, for example. It's not just a fantasy. You get married, everything's going to work out, la-di-da, it's all going to be great, right? It's like running a business. You need to have, and in this first video, he was talking about having business meetings every week. If you're running a business, it's almost like you need to go on dates every week together where you talk about the internal things that are going on, the day-to-day things. How's the house running? Does it need this? Does it need that? How's our finances? How are our structures? How's everything working? It was a really eye-opening video, especially regards to marriage. But getting back to the male thing, I really find that so many men that in a lot of my circles have really been captivated by some of that work and how bluntly it puts things and how nicely and how much they relate to it. I think the relatability that Jordan gives people is just really powerful. So let's get to the relatability with people. And one of the questions I really had was, when's your book coming out?
That'll most likely be next year. It's something I'm working on as a pet project on the side, my manifesto, so to speak, and that sort of thing. So my goal is to have something tangible published by the end of next year. And that's in line with my general philosophy, right? I could get it out sooner, but I might lose my soul in the process, and I don't want to do that. So I've got a little bit of a case study to build, and that'll be next year. Right now, my main service offerings are the one-on-one coaching, and then that's the unlimited package where weight loss guarantee, everything like that. And that's been really a beautiful project that we've had going. But then I've also got for those who are maybe a little bit more want to step their toes in the water and spend a little bit less and that sort of thing. We've got the RBLD Fitness app that you can find on my Instagram page, right on my link there. Free 7-day trial. It's got at-home workouts, gyms, all that kind of stuff. But again, it also comes with the 3 months of fitness and diet related educational modules delivered right to your inbox so that you can learn as you burn, so to speak.
Nice. I love that. So people can find you on Instagram. Where else can they find you? Why don't you share your social handles, and I'll put them in the show notes also for people so they can just click on them.
Website's coming out soon, but right now, primarily Instagram and Facebook. So Instagram is Ted Woolsey, TEDWOOLSEY. And then Facebook is Teddy Woolsey. You can find me there. The links are connected on that way. Yeah, the social media marketing is a funny world. I'm trying to build up from there, but you'll see some more articles, blogs, and some really well thought out content coming from me that's really relevant to viewers and clients as well. So stay tuned. It's only the beginning, it's for sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Teddy. You're doing great work. Really excited to have had you on today and for sharing your message and what you're up to. And more people need to be finding people like you for help. We need to turn people away from the one-off diet books and get them onto real lifestyle change when they're in the pain. Let's turn them the right direction instead of turning them into disenchanted people who feel like they're going to be let down. Turn them into when they've got the pain. Let's give them hope.
We're on the same team here, man. I appreciate you having me on and the work that you do as well. The goal is to give people hope and give them a plan that works for them. So for all those listening, I promise you there is a way. It's simpler than you think. And I promise you it's much more effective than maybe a lot of things that you've been trying before. Much more enjoyable as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Ted. We'll be in touch. All right.
Rock on, brother.
Hey, I hope you guys really enjoyed that podcast with Teddy. He is a great guy. He's got a lot going on for him and going for him. Something really connected with you on the podcast, you feel like you want to reach out to Teddy, just do it. Shoot him an email. I'm going to put that stuff there in the show notes for you. You can find him on Instagram, Facebook, all those places where people find people. Look him up, contact him, let him know what you got going on. Either just tell him how cool it was to hear his story on the podcast or ask him if there's something that maybe he can help you with. Get into maybe his coaching program with him and make some moves in that regard. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's first episode of the Rise Again podcast in 2023 with Teddy Woolsey. And on another note, I'll be launching the page for the nonprofit NCN Consulting. It's my naturopathic consultants nonprofit consulting firm. It's a nonprofit 501c3 where I help people who are either military veterans, people in foster and adoptive care, or their families associated with foster and adoptive care, people who are low income, or health professional students in training. So I'm happy to help all these people at a sliding scale, make it work for them, give them the best healthcare that maybe they've ever had in their lives, and really just kind of dial things up for them and take their lives to the next level. So if you guys are interested in contributing and being a part of growing NCN, I would really love to hear from you. Send me an email and we can get it so that eventually when we have our page launched, there'll be a donate button and all that. So you just stay tuned for Naturopathic Consultants Nonprofit. It's up and running, but the website is going to be here very shortly. I hope you guys have a great start to 2023 and you guys have some things that you really want to accomplish and some long-term strategies put in place for achieving some of those goals that you have. You know, it's not going to be enough to just say, hey, for the next 30 days, I'm going to do this and just see what happens. Let's just make some long-term plans and implement some strategies over the long haul that will make a serious difference. You know, it's not about how many pounds you can lose in 30 days. It's how many you can keep off over the course of an entire year or 2 years or 3 years or the rest of your life. The goal is long-term fitness, financial fitness, health, wellness, well-being, joy, contentment, sustained workload so that you're not approaching burnout, you know, all these kind of things, right? So that's what we all want, but yet we end up reaching to these short-term promises over and over and over again, which deliver really lackluster results. So we've got to be looking at something that's more long-term. I hope you guys are into that stuff and that you've got some things planned, maybe not a New Year's resolution, so to speak, but maybe it's something that you really want to do. And no better time than now to sit back, reflect on 2022, fill out the scorecard on 2022. What happened? Where were you? What things did you do? What are those things? What happened in your life because of those things that you did? And start journaling some of this stuff, start writing some of this down, and start putting out some things that, man, they really matter to me. And I really would like to take some action in these areas. It's not super complicated and it doesn't have to be so hard. Now, if you set the bar low enough that you can achieve your goals, you can keep raising the bar as you achieve those goals. Part of motivation culture that really sucks is that people set the bar so high, they fail and they feel like they just have to keep trying these things that are just almost insurmountable or they just can't even reach it because it's so high and it just causes people to give up. So set the bar low enough, achieve the goal, then ratchet the bar up a little higher. It's like high jump, right? In middle school or grade school, when you guys had a high jump in physical education class, you probably didn't start at 6 feet. You know, you started at 3 and then you moved it up 3 feet, 4 inches or 6 inches or whatever. And you just kind of kept moving it up. That's the way life should be with goals. Set yourselves up for success, set some goals that are reachable. And then from there, you can make some more moves. So I hope you guys have a great start to 2023. Reach out if there's anything that I can help you with or something that you're interested in, possibly getting checked out that you haven't checked out in the past that would help you reach your goals. I look forward to being in touch with you all. And we are off to a great season here. at the Rise Again podcast in 2023. Make it a great day. Hey, thanks for listening to the Rise Again podcast. Great episode, hey? You know what? I really love interviewing people, and I love getting people on who have things to share with the world. So if you have a really cool guest that you'd like to get on the podcast, email me and I will do my best to get them on the show. I hope you guys have a phenomenal week and stay tuned for the next episode of the Rise Again podcast.